Hi, I'm Meta Spencer. Shall we go to Barcelona today? Barcelona is one of my favorite places in the world, and it would be yours too. It's a wonderful city, and not only that, but there are wonderful people there working on peace issues. We're going to have a lot of fun with these folks. I used to be part of the International Peace Bureau Steering Committee, so I went to many different meetings in various parts of Europe. We had a couple of meetings in Barcelona, so I'm very aware of the fact that the people in Barcelona, there are wonderful organizations that are doing splendid work. So I have two very fine people here who are going to tell me about the current global campaign against military spending, which is something that they do every year globally, the International Peace Bureau. And so we want to catch up on how it's going. This is a time of the year when they do it. So my first guest here is Pere Brunet, who is a retired professor of the Polytechnic University of Catalonia. And he's been teaching and supervising students there for 45 years in mostly in computer science, as I understand it. He's very concerned with the analysis of militarism and terrorism. And so he's working on this campaign along with his colleague, Quique Sanchez, who has a degree in political science and master's in peace studies, and is now on the staff of the Centre de l'Art of Peace Studies. And that's part of the International Peace Bureau, which is the oldest and most, well, I shouldn't say most distinguished, but I think international organization, sort of umbrella organization of peace organizations globally. So I see some of my good, we don't know each other yet, really. So today we're going to get acquainted, and you get to get acquainted with me, because I haven't been going to Europe for several years, and therefore I haven't met either Pere or Quique. And hello, Pere.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Great to meet you. And Quique, say hello.
Hi, Meta. Very nice to finally meet you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, is that your office there, the Centre de l'Art?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you pronounce it? Or de las?
Centre de l'Art. Mm-hmm.
De las.
Yes, it's Catalan last name, Centre de l'Art. But everyone has trouble with it. Even people in Spain have problems with the pronunciation. So don't worry.
All right, that's true. Well, anyway, it's nice to be in your office and meet you. Now, every year, the International Peace Bureau puts on this thing, and I believe you started when the SIPRI, Stockholm Institute, International Peace Research Institute, announces its annual tabulation of military spending in the world. Can you tell us about that, Quique, what that is all about?
Yes, sure. As you said, this is the most special period of our campaign, the campaign on military spending, because now is what we call the GRAMS period, which takes from tax day in the United States until normally May 9th, which is Europe Day of Peace and Unity. So we go from the United States tax day to Europe Day. But as you know, this year the tax day in the United States was postponed, so we had to stretch the GRAMS period a bit longer than usual. And instead of finishing on May 9th, we're finishing on May 17th, which is next Monday. But as you said, the most important day during this GRAMS period is the day when SIPRI, the Stockholm Institute for Peace Research, releases new data on military spending. This year, this happened on April 26th, and as you probably know, we found that during 2020, the world spent $1.98 trillion on armies and weapons. So that's global military spending.
That's up, isn't it? That's up from last year, because I think last year was it 1.8 something?
That was 2019, 1.91, and this year it went up 2.6%. But we're talking about 2020 figures. So this is what the world spent during the first year of the pandemic.
Mhm.
It will take until April of next year to find out what we spent in 2021. So we're talking.
Do you expect it will go down during the pandemic, or does anybody predict one way or another?
CIPRI said that we still need to see how the pandemic affected, because it's true that budgets were made before the actual pandemic. But some countries did react to the situation and actually adjusted. And for example, South Korea or Chile, they reduced their military spending when the pandemic hit. But most countries didn't do any changes. And despite the horrible situation, they increased the military expenditure. So we see that the biggest spenders, except for Saudi Arabia, they all increased their spending. But we still need to see what's going to happen in 2021. For instance, about the United States, we know that there's a small increase done by the current administration of Joe Biden. So we're not expecting the global figure to decrease, sadly.
That's close to $2 trillion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost rounding up right easily to $2 trillion. Now, a trillion is 1,000 billion. So it's almost 2,000 billion dollars is spent for military things. And what all does that cover?
To account for the normal expenses of the army, but also new acquisitions of weapons, also health insurance of the army. Some I don't think CIPRI does that, but some research centers also account for the debt that the military spending creates, but that's not so useful. I don't think CIPRI does that, but it entails all expenses by the military. But as you said, from salaries and insurances to veterans' benefits, operations in abroad.
If anything is clear, this pandemic has made it very obvious that real security doesn't come from having more and more expenditures on weapons, when in fact you have these little things called viruses that can hop around the world out of animals and into your nostrils and do terrible things, and your nuclear weapons are not very good at fighting viruses. Okay, Pierre, tell me about you. You work with Kike.
Yes, in fact, I was working in the campaign during 2 years before Kike arrived. Then I was more relaxed after Kike arrival, because
he took on over some of your chores. Is that it?
Yeah,
Thank you, Kike.
Yeah. It was really a fantastic thing for me.
He was a great mentor. He was a great mentor.
Very sweet.
But we are working in fact, now I am one of the researchers in the last Center for Peace Studies. And we are, for instance, working in looking at the correlation between military spending and climate change and the environmental crisis of the planet. And we have obtained very, very interesting conclusions on that. In fact, as you said, Meta, we are in a very strange situation, because countries, in fact, they are working on politics like 100 years ago. Having borders and trying to have these borders closed and so on. But the challenges of the present challenges are global, are not country-based. We have the pandemics, and we have seen that it's nonsense to have armies trying to control the borders when the pandemic just goes over. And climate change and all the problems of the planet are also global. So we need a change. We need a complete change on this. And
For sure.
so,
Now, you mentioned that you've been doing research on the connection between global warming and militarism or military spending. Boy, do I want to hear what you have to say, because I don't find that much written or that much research on really the numbers, you know?
Yeah.
And there's one woman here in Canada who's been doing a doctoral degree, PhD thesis, on the topic, showing how militarism, you know, increases global warming because of course everything produces greenhouse gas, and the military certainly produce a lot of it. But it's I don't find very much. Now tell me a little bit, if you don't mind plunging right into describing your research on that subject, because I think that's what we need to know. If we want to get people to stop spending money on the military, there are two things to tell them. Let's spend it on healthcare instead, because people now see the need for it. And let's spend it on the environment, because people, and, you know, preventing global warming.
It's twofold. On the first hand, we have analyzed the climate footprint of the military. And this is amazing because this is not known. I mean, the military over the world is a very big contributor to climate change. In fact, inside the military, the US military are the biggest ones.
By far.
Clearly. The armies in the world are producing between 5 and 6% of the total of the emissions of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Okay,
right there, you just did me a big favor, because on one of my talk shows a month or so ago, I said, I didn't give a number, but I said it was a lot. And my guest said, no, it would be less than 0.5% of the global greenhouse gas would be caused by the military. If you say 6,
between 5 and 6, yes.
Between 5 and 6%.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we've got to. There you go. Thank you very much. I want to cite you.
And besides that, the U.S. Army is of course the top contributor to the global warming, and the emissions is 212 million tons of carbon dioxide, and this means double the emissions of Belgium and half the emissions of France. So just the U.S. Army is generating carbon dioxide with an amount which is half the amount of the complete France. This is one data. And second, we have analyzed the relations between the big countries in the north of the world and the rest of the world. And we have there is a table in the report. By the way, the report, if you Google militarism and environmental crisis, necessary reflection, this is the title of the report. You will get the data and the tables and so on. And just to give you a few data, we have analyzed 23 countries in basically of the north of the planet, and they amount 35% of the world population, but the emissions of those countries are 67%, so double the number, the population. And this is very important, they produce and export 97% of the arms in the planet. So 23 countries, 35% of the population, 67% of the emissions, 97% of the world arms exported and produced. So this is a big business.
Oh yeah.
Because they get the resources from other countries. They produce arms to control to ensure that they will be able to continue extracting the resources. And they export arms that produce conflicts in those countries having resources. And moreover, they build walls to avoid people entering their country. So they also use arms to stop people. This is amazing. I mean, borders are closed for people, but they are open for goods, for resources, and for benefits and for money. So it's a very, very strange century.
Yeah. And you know, I've been in areas that had been at war, a city that had been destroyed, and I'm thinking of Sarajevo, for example, after the war. And you just think how much, I don't know whether that would be counted as military or not. I don't think so. But you've got to rebuild that city. And you can't do that without emitting a hell of a lot of CO2 and other bad things. So do you think, I don't think they count that as part of the military spending, but it's the effect of the military spending. And for sure, you know, it causes global warming.
Definitely.
Is any of that reflected in the numbers that, Perry, when you say between 5 and 6% is on the military, that's just to keep for the upkeep of the armies and navies and so on, isn't it? And maybe develop new weapons? I'm just not sure what they count.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we are not accounting for reconstruction of destruction caused by war. The CO2 emissions would be greater in this case. We don't have figures for that. But,
that's what I was afraid of, because you know, in a way, logically, you have to think that's what the wars are for, to destroy things. To break things and destroy things.
Accounting for fires. For example, in the Iraq war, all these wells of oil that were burned, they were burning for months. Those emissions are huge as well. So you need to account for the destruction, and then, as you said, for the reconstruction. And that's not included there.
And somebody told me a few years ago that when the US, and I suppose any country, does an operation overseas, as for example, is the American troops in Afghanistan, they have to ship the fuel over there for them to run whatever tanks or armored personnel carriers or planes or whatever they're doing. And that 40% of their budget for these operations goes to transporting the fuel that they're going to actually need to burn in that location. So, you know, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, thank you for that. Now, you, as I recall, I don't want to interrupt you, Perry, because you were on a roll. Tell me more about your research.
Okay. Well, in fact, there is also another part of the research that relates to the global power. because we differentiate in our research between the military-based security and the human security.
Mhm.
The military-based security is the aim is to secure the states and the interests of the states. In fact, this is a mystery because it's not clear. I can tell you about the needs of the people, but I don't know about the needs of states. But anyway, this is military-based security, and we have observed that in fact this is self-driving. And this is very, very dangerous because there is, I would say, a triangle of power, what we call the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
In fact, this term was Eisenhower's term.
Eisenhower in his farewell address, I think.
Exactly. It was he was telling Kennedy. And just to be aware of the power of the military-industrial complex. So this military-industrial complex, together with the banks, the financial power, and transnational corporations that are basically interested in getting resources and transporting those resources to the etc. This is self-driving. I mean, this and the problem is that this is not giving any benefit to the people in the world, nor to the planet. It's just a triangle that gets money, and the money keeps within this triangle. I mean, corporations, military, and banks and financial entities. And we have observed, and this is one of the results of the research. This is quite impressive. I mean. In fact, this is part of our research, but it's based on work of Stephanie Vitali. She's a researcher, Swiss-based researcher, and she found that only 50 big corporations in the world are controlling 53,000 transnational corporations.
Okay.
Only 53, and those 63 are mainly financial corporations. Are not, are not industries. Are not 63 corporations are controlling like 60,000. And
there's another piece of research too. I don't know that woman's work, and I'll look for it. But there's a guy named Peter Phillips in California who wrote a book showing exactly the same thing. He was giving a little bio of all of the people, and the book was full of little bios of who these people are and what they live, what their connections are to each other in their clubs and this or that. And it's not a large number. It's just a small group of people, but boy, do they have power.
Yeah,
this is really true. Yeah,
and just to finish. We have shown that this kernel of people, of 60 people, they are based in those 23 countries that export 97% of the arms in the world.
That would figure.
So just nothing else to say.
We are. So we're the bad guys. As Pogo said, we have met the enemy and he is us. It is us. Our countries are the bad guys. Yeah, that's too bad. Well, not only that, but I think you're quite right in saying it's really hard to fight it. It's hard to fight the military-industrial complex because they are smartly figuring out how to do the politics of the thing. Now, in the US, I understand that they make sure that every state in the US has one or more, and usually a lot more than one, military related industry or installation there, so that there's not a single political constituency that doesn't have a stake in continuing this. And they will say, well, if we close these things down, people would be out of jobs. Well, so I think that really there have to be two different approaches too. One is to the investors, because if most investors knew that their their pension funds and their retirement money and stuff is invested in corporations that are doing these bad things, they would want out, but they don't know about it. So it's hard. It's actually quite hard to take your money out of the military industrial complex. You have to deal with your broker who doesn't really know what all these companies do and how dirty they are. So, informing people about moving their money out of these corporations would be a good thing. But the other thing is jobs, because I think that it's really true that companies, they make sure that a lot of people are hired to work for these industries, as well as in the military directly itself. So here in Canada, we have had a thing going on for several years where Canadian General Dynamics in London, Ontario, has a contract with Saudi Arabia to build huge numbers, I don't know how many, of armored personnel carriers. And we don't know what they're doing with those, but the concern is they may actually be using them against the Yemen population. I don't know. They certainly have used them in their own country against dissident groups, or to quell any opposition. So there have been polls in which it's been demonstrated that most Canadians want us to stop this and just break the contract and say, we will not continue to produce these weapons for you. But the government won't do it, because it would cost, there'd be a huge economic penalty, and the loss of these jobs immediately would create a huge political backlash against the government for doing it. So they're not going to do it. So I think that anytime we tell a group, shut down this operation, this factory, this, weapons manufacturing company, we should say, let's transform this company into something or other better. Like, for example, the company General Dynamics that used to be making, that is making these armored personnel carriers now, used to be making locomotives or trains. I don't know, maybe cars for trains. Why not go back to making trains? We could certainly, that would be a very good thing to do, put in a super train, kind of thing. Well, to what extent, if I'm giving you I'm doing all the talking when I should be asking you questions, but to what extent are people who do this kind of political pressuring or activism to try to shut down military spending, to what extent are they also talking about how to do conversion to worthwhile jobs?
Like, for example, we've seen it the other way around. We've seen conversion from civil to military.
Really?
So we've seen the war efforts, during the Second World War, when many industries will turn into military because of the situation. Well, one of the points of the report that we're talking about is that it's time for peace efforts. The situation is demanding that we do changes in the way we live, in the way we produce, in the way we relate to each other and to the planet. So it's time for peace efforts in the sense that the military industry needs to convert to the civil industry, and needs to address the true necessities, the true needs of people. There's a wonderful report by Campaign Against Arms Trade from the UK. It's called Arms to Renewables. That is actually making a blueprint of how the military industry could turn to civil, because there are many compatibilities among the jobs and among the technologies. So it shouldn't be so hard. There's actually a case of East Lucas Aerospace, also in the UK, that is a good example of how a civil industry can turn to, a military industry can turn into civil. In Germany, we also have good examples after the Second World War of military industries turning to civil. So it's about time that we make this a political issue and we put it in the agenda, definitely. And what you said about moving the money, this is one of the slogans of our campaign. It has been for already almost 10 years. And it's not only, as you say, it's not only about our tax money. It's not only taxpayers' money. It's also our savings, because we need to be aware that our savings our banks are using our money to finance, to fund many business that we would not agree with. So it's about time that we ask for that, no? That change in.
Well, of course, there are some campaigns that do some of this. I know there's something called Don't Bank on the Bomb, which I think is probably managed largely by Pax Christi. Am I correct? And then I know that Alan Ware has been doing something called Move the
Nuclear Weapons Money.
What's it called? Move the money, move the nuclear weapons money. What's it called?
Move the Nuclear Weapons Money.
Now,
it's also a divestment campaign.
To what extent are these are campaigns like this integrating not only the money about military corporations, but also again taking money out of corporations that produce harmful, machines and things that are bad for the environment. The global warming issue and fuel, there's a campaign to reduce subsidies for fossil fuel companies. Those things could be hooked up together. I like the idea of having movements that combine several issues because they are so related. Do you know of any campaign like that is emphasizing not only take your money out of military things, but then say, take your money out of fossil fuel operations?
Well, in fact, we think that we are working to connect movements in some sense. We think that, for instance, we see that climate change movements, it's very rare that they talk about military spending and the necessity of reducing military spending. So the ones working on the campaigns to reduce military spending should try to connect to other ways of using the money, and also the campaigns based on climate change and planet crisis should incorporate the necessity of the reduction of military spending. So we think we need to connect movements. There is a certain tendency in the activists to produce very small groups, and each one is claiming for something. No, we should connect because it's a very big problem. We should work together.
Well, you're taking words out of my playbook because, I'm running this thing called To Save the World, or Project Save the World. And the whole idea is that we have a number of terrible threats to humankind, and they're also connected. They're really it's only sensible to address them as a package. But I certainly agree with you that most of the organizations that are producing reform ideas, I'm thinking of the Green New Deal, for example, in the US. Now, they have a lot of very fine proposals, or they had. I don't know where, I don't know whether they keep changing it or what, but the Green New Deal didn't say a word about militarism.
No, it didn't.
They did, so far as I know. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. It's very
And
disappointing.
I think they thought that, well, the army is one of the few things that is maybe politically popular, that we would lose support for the Green New Deal if we talked about shifting money out of the military. I don't know. I'd like to look at the polls on that and see what the average person, the American, thinks about the subject.
For an issue that has been taken for many years, more than half of the federal taxes of the United States. It didn't make sense to make a budget plan, a policy plan that would not touch something that is taking half of your federal income taxes every year. So there was a big missing piece in these plans. I mean, some in the left and some promoters of the Green New Deal in the United States were talking about military spending, for example, Bernie Sanders. But in the plan, once it was out, they were not talking about that so much. We're talking about the subsidies of the oil industry and all that. But if they were missing one pillar, one cornerstone of the current way of doing business.
Asking for a substantial reduction of military spending has several benefits. I mean, first of all, reduction of military spending means reduction of this power and this militarized security. And this is good because we want another security. We want a security for the people, not a security for the states. Second, we have money to redirect. First was reducing. Second is redirect this money to real human needs. And third is to revise the concept of security. This is really important in this new century. We must revise the concept of security, and we must talk about security of the people. Security of the people means of every person in the world. I mean,
absolutely, yeah. And I think that is the most fruitful distinction to draw, is the distinction between the security of the state, which is not necessarily, and often absolutely not, compatible with the security of the people it's supposed to be representing, the population. Yeah, right. I mean, I can give some examples, but there's no point in throwing it off track. But we can think of, any of us can think of examples in which what the state is doing is not good for the people that it is representing. I'm thinking, for example, I've mentioned already, living in Canada, that the Canadian government will not stop this production of the armored personnel carriers or the sale of it. But they also have not signed the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And there are polls showing that something like 80% of the Canadian population want it to be signed, want it to be so. If we're a democracy, how come we aren't doing it? Well, because what the state people, the government people think in terms of, well, what's this going to do with our relationship, say, with the US? And a bunch of things like that bring the state-to-state relationships become so much more important than the human beings that they are supposed to be looking after. Tell me about the Green parties in Europe. I've said that we've agreed that the Green New Deal didn't go where it should in terms of military spending, but are the Green parties in general more aware of the bad effects of investing in militarism?
I wouldn't say so.
This is strange. I mean, I would say that the GCOM's message is a strange one. I mean, for the right parties and also for the left parties.
How so?
it's amazing, but it's like this. I think we need. I am optimistic in the sense that we are facing global challenges more and more, and this is incompatible with the present structure of military in the nations and the countries and so on. But it's a fact. I mean, the green parties are not incorporating the issue of militarism in their programs, and the left parties it's the same. We had a coalition. We have a coalition in Spain between the Socialist Party and a party which who is named We Can. And this party, whose name We Can, is like is in the left of the socialists, and we even have problems to talk to them about the necessity of decreasing military spending in Spain. Spain is one of the 10 biggest countries exporting arms. So many important people in the country are connected to this business. Let's say it this way. So I think there is a lot of interests, a lot of non-democratic interests on this. Unfortunately.
What is this is off track? What is Podemos?
That's the one he's talking about.
No, Podemos. I was saying we can is Podemos.
Podemos means we can.
Oh,
actually, yeah.
We can. All right. So there we go.
They're more progressive and more green than the socialists in Spain.
Yeah.
And now they're in the government. It's a coalition. But despite them being on the government, and we expecting a bit of a change in the security paradigm and on what defense is considered, we haven't seen any change. It doesn't matter if it's the right or the left in Spain. The military is a sacred cow. It's an issue. It's an issue that cannot be discussed. Not even in the arms trade when we're selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, who is one of our biggest customers.
Really?
And
are you still selling it to Saudi Arabia?
Mm-hmm.
Really? So you guys are bad guys, just as bad as Canadians are. All right.
Yes. And Saudi Arabian boats stop in Spain. Since the Yemen war started, at least 30 boats have been in Spain, loading weapons and as a safe haven, safe harbor. I don't know what's the word. So we are part of the route, and we're part of the arms trade when it comes to Saudi Arabia. And our king, it's family. They consider
Really?
he and the Saudi Arabian king, they consider each other brothers.
No kidding.
So there's an interesting story of politicians, monarchs, businessmen, military commanders, all very well connected, and making business.
Well, how are you guys approaching the problem? I would say I don't think we've made any progress in Canada on solving this, armored personnel carrier sale. As far as I know, it continues, even though there's certainly no love lost between the Saudi Arabian government and Canadian government. There's bad blood there, but that doesn't interfere with this business transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you peace activists in Spain trying to solve your relationship with the Saudis?
I would say it's very similar to what you have. Spain is currently building 5 warships for Saudi Arabia. And the discourse and the false dilemma that you were mentioning before about the jobs, the creation of jobs, is also used here. So for them, they present us with this situation like we either create jobs or we defend human rights and we care about people in Yemen. So they present us with this false dilemma, and public opinion buys it. They buy it.
Well, is there any organized effort to challenge that theory? I mean, it's true, there are jobs involved. And unless you actually have a plan to how many jobs you could convert to something else, then I think people are going to assume that it's in their economic interest to continue that.
That's the point, that there's a lot of public money in there. And there are many studies that prove that investments in the public sector and civil sector always make more employment than the military one, because the military is not a very productive sector. It doesn't enter the market. The goods that we create are always sanctioned. I mean, they don't enter the market. They don't participate of the economy. They depend on the government. So it's a false dilemma.
This is part of our discourse, and what we want. We try to tell the society in Spain. There is the military industry can be reconverted. So jobs in this sense can be protected. The ethical problem is different from the problem of the particular people in the industry. There is a big contradiction in Spain. Well, in Spain and in European countries, because there is a European regulation that prohibits to export arms to countries that are not in favor of human rights, and countries that can use those weapons in conflicts, in big conflicts. So in this sense, exporting weapons to Saudi Arabia is not allowed by the European regulations.
Canada is bound by such a law too. I don't know what the law is, but people cite it, and it's just laughable because it's so obviously in contradiction to our real policy. But so what? It doesn't make any difference. They go ahead anyway. How do they justify continuing? I mean, they must have to answer. You're required to answer to give a justification for selling to a country that is doing such egregious violations of all kinds. What do they say to explain themselves?
The problem is that in the parliament, nobody asked this question, because all of them are in favor. So one of the possible actions, and this has been successful in other countries like the Netherlands, and we are trying some to denounce and to sue the state for not complying with the law. We are trying in some cases to go to the justice against the state of Spain for not complying with the law, in this case of exporting arms to certain countries.
Is there a court or something like that where you can take this case?
Yes, we've taken it to The Hague.
Where did the law come from? Is it a Spanish law, or is it some sort of treaty or some sort of international regulation that Spain has signed on to that's covers all of the EU, or what?
We believe that Spain is violating both the Spanish law and the European law. And actually, we're part of a case that has been taken to the International Court of Justice in The Hague, together with other organizations and together with a Yemeni partner, Muatana for Human Rights, who have been checking the weapons that were used in bombings, and they are providing with the evidence. And we are part of this court case that has been taken to the International Court of Justice. And,
so
we're both suing against high high authorities, like political and also corporate responsibilities. So we're going for both ways, and yeah, we will know more about this during the summer. But it's one of the ways that we're trying to solve this, because on the Spanish justice is not possible.
Is it your organization, or who's taking the carrying the ball on this?
We're part of it. I will say the leading organization is European Constitutional ECCHR from Berlin. I don't remember the actual. I think it's
HR would be human rights.
European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights. That's it.
Oh.
European Center for they're based in Berlin, and they're leading the suit case. Yeah, what was the word? The case.
And do you have evidence that the weaponry or ships or whatever you produce for the Saudis has been used against the Yemeni population?
That's what Mwatana is providing, this evidence, and yes, we know of some cases, but this is still on trial, so maybe it wouldn't make sense to talk about it now. But yes, Mwatana has been tracking companies. I mean, has been checking all the what's the word for the remainings of a bomb? I don't know.
So you can see where each little shrapnel piece came from.
Yes, yeah. They've been tracking that, and I know that they've tracked Italian weapons, and they've tracked companies that are working in Spain, France, Germany. And also there are ways to track the planes that were used, the jets that were used there. So there's a big body of evidence in both the bombings and who's been behind it. And yes, there are many organizations moving this in the International Supreme Court of Justice, because in particular countries it hasn't been so easy. And even when there are cases like in the UK, when the courts order that the weapons should be stopped, the selling of weapons should be stopped, even then governments don't comply. Mm-hmm. So the next move is going to International Court of Justice. Mm-hmm.
So it sounds as if it would be great for all of the countries that are involved in this kind of bad behavior, selling these weapons to the Saudis. If they all got together and had one single court case, say that would penalize or rule against all of the countries doing it. I'd love to see Canada in it, but of course Canada is not part of the EU. But if it were at the Hague, if you're talking about some sort of international bigger than the EU.
No, I only know about the regulation. This was 2008, the European regulation, and then it produced state laws in different states. So, but I don't know of anything else.
But there are international arms control treaties.
Arms trade treaty. Arms trade treaty. So maybe that could be invoked. It's like maybe that's where to go. Let's wind up by having you give me a short statement, if you can, about what, you're coming to the end of the GCOMS period, and you've been running this, and we haven't talked so much about that. How many countries have been doing actions, and what have you found out about what people are doing?
Well, just to clarify, GCOMS is the name of the campaign. GDAMS is the period of action. I know it's very confusing, but during this GDAMS that is about to finish next Monday, we've already accounted for more than 150 actions in over 30 different countries, all 5 continents, and very diverse, very original. And despite the restrictions forced by the pandemic, we've seen many beautiful actions, and we believe this is so because the COVID pandemic has proven that our message was necessary, in the sense that military security or traditional security is not providing what people need. So we've seen that people are more interested in human security as a new paradigm, and also people are very upset. They're very disappointed that governments have been spending money in the wrong places. And we've been working also on trying to make evident this opportunity cost. We've been making comparisons of how much doctors could you hire instead if you were not buying a frigate or a tank or we've been doing these comparisons between what warfare costs and what healthcare costs, and we've seen that people relate to it and understand that it's time for a new paradigm when it comes to defense and security. And also,
well, that's one of the, if there's any silver lining to the pandemic, it might be the change in public consciousness, but I haven't seen that much change, frankly. I hope, I mean, you say you see it. Great. I'll try to believe you.
We've seen interest, for example, in healthcare personnel and organizations. We've seen them approaching, and also in the political sphere, we've seen that some parts of the most progressive representatives have approached to these alternatives. And yes, I'm confident. I'm confident that people are getting sick and tired of these mantras that we keep repeating about security and armies and weapons to make us feel safe, because they don't. It's the same with nuclear weapons. We've been 60, 70 years working on that issue, and of course doesn't make us any safer. So
well, bless your hearts. You're doing wonderful, wonderful work. And it's really good to meet you at last and to feel sure that we're on the same team, because what you're doing is just terrific. And thank you very, very much for this. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having us. It's been a pleasure.